All right. Hey, good morning, everyone. I'm Chris Sarton. I'm the principal here at Oak Park High School. I'm going to kind of kick things off just by letting you know that we are recording this too. So just anything that comes up or if you want to go back and watch again later, you can. We have a pretty small group this morning. So I would think that you could either use the chat function if you have any questions that come up throughout the presentation, or we'll have time as well for questions. While I see most of you have muted yourself and turned your video off, if when we get into a Q&A portion, if you want to unmute so you can ask your question live, that's fine. A couple of administrators that are here with us this morning, Mike Dial and Jackie guys, they'll help moderate the chat and answer any questions that come up outside of the realm of what our speakers are talking about. But we're going to kick things off with Callie Smothers, who is our TLC. And then after that, we'll transition to Heather Brennan, who's our school community resource specialist, and Natalie Koster, who's our school psychologist. Okay, so Callie, if you are ready, go right ahead. And thank you everyone for joining us this morning.
I'm Callie Smothers. I'm the teaching and learning coach over at Oak Park, which kind of means I do some instructional support for teachers, but then I also get to teach a class, which is nice to kind of live in both worlds. I was asked this morning to talk about organization because I think that's been one of the biggest challenges for our kids in this hybrid and virtual experience. I think oftentimes we kind of take for granted the organizational structure of school. So kids would have like a block of time that they are always doing first block, and they're always working on their first block class during that time. And during this COVID learning experience, kids have a little bit more autonomy with their time. And so organization that we have kind of taught a little bit is fully theirs. And that can be overwhelming for kids, keeping track of 8 classes without having 8 blocks of time every single day. And so I wanted to come on here and help you parents just kind of think about how to talk to your kids about organization. And I do have a video that has a couple of different organizational options that I'll share with you, but I'll also walk you through those. So one of the big things I think that's going to be really, really important for kids is that they have an organizational structure that's predictable, but it's got to be a system that can be repeated over and over again. So if your kid is a little bit more like tactile, like they maybe like if things are not seen, they don't think about them. If that's your kid, then maybe post-it notes for their to-do list, like one post-it note for each class on their door. Maybe an organizational system that could work, that every single Monday they're putting 8 post-it notes on their door that has their 8 to-do lists for each class. Or maybe they, like I've had a couple of kids in class use an agenda, but they scratch out the Monday and they turn it into like American Lit, and then they scratch out the Tuesday and put algebra. And so each week they have kind of like a desk calendar that has all of their 8 classes with their to-do lists. The most important thing though is that they have a system that's repeatable for them. If they are an electronic kid and they love doing everything on their computer, then they may like using the reminders on their computer or the sticky notes on their computer. But it's got to be a system that's repeatable every single week. So the video that I have, I'm going to put it in the chat here in just a little bit. It talks about using sticky notes as an organizational system, or their email calendar. Since they're talking with teachers a lot on email, that may be a good system. It also talks about maybe using reminders on their computer, how to get on Google and print off like an agenda sheet every single week. And then I think there's one more, but I'm not 100% sure. But I also wanted to give you parents a one-pager. So I'm going to pop a file in here. Is it okay if I share my screen? Okay, great. Let me open that up real quickly. I'm so sorry. Should have been prepared. All right. Oh, it says the host has disabled attendee screen sharing. So we'll do that in a little bit. So the other thing that I think is really important is that they spend time on Monday logging their quick to-do list. So oftentimes kids will get lost in their Canvas class. And by that, I mean like they'll read one of their to-do list items and they'll be like, well, how do I do that? I don't know how to do that. And then they'll get lost into the instruction without just making their to-do list. So I would suggest first thing on Monday that they sit down and just go through their Canvas classes rapid fire. So they can just be like, okay, for my American Lit class, I need to do these 3 things. For my algebra class, I got to do these 2 things. And they just make a list real quickly and don't look at instructions, don't look at directions, don't watch videos, just write down their to-do list for their classes. That can kind of help with their big picture for the week of what they need to spend a lot of time on. What do they need to work on Monday versus I can get that real quickly done on Thursday. And then the last thing.
Callie, I think you can go ahead and share now.
Okay, great. So this is what I'm looking at. And I will send this to you parents. So again, that first thing is to choose organization method that can be used repeatedly. Spend time on Monday logging the quick to-do list for the week. Again, just the tasks. And then the last thing would be to work on one class at a time. Now, here's what I mean by that, though. For organization, they need to have an organizational system that includes all 8 classes. So that's what I was talking about with 8 Post-it notes, or 8 reminder sets, or 8 classes logged in their email calendar. They have to keep track of all 8. And I know that's challenging. It's incredibly challenging. But they need to have like one sticky note for class. So that way they know they're keeping track of everything that they need to keep track of. If they're saving things on their desktop, they need to have 8 folders, or they save it in Box or Google Drive. They still need to have 8 folders, 1 folder for each class. And then I would also suggest, like, if they could color code things, that's not everybody. That's not everybody's bag of tea. But then also working on those blocks of time. So I'm going to give myself 2 hours to work just on this class, and then I'm going to leave it. Or I'm just going to have 90 minutes. That's how long I would have in school. So I'm going to set a timer for 90 minutes and walk away. Or they could choose always to work on their algebra class on Monday. But just having a system where they do one class at a time. They've got 1 folder for that class. They've got 1 color for that class. Those things are helpful. And then I wanted to say one more thing for you parents. No teenager welcomes accountability. No teenager wants to be asked about their classes every single day, asked about their to-do list every single day. Every teenager is going to push back on that. What I would suggest is that if you expect your kid and they expect themselves to kind of get themselves organized on a Monday, that at the end of that Monday, you simply say, hey, show me your to-do list for your 8 classes. Screenshot it, shoot it to me in an email, shoot it to me in a text, so you can kind of be a little hands-off. But ask to see that organizational system every single Monday. And then periodically through the week say, hey, show me what you checked off that list. I think what happens sometimes is parents will say, like, show me what you need to do. And so only what they're working on is on the parents' radar. And it's also the only thing on the kids' radar is I'm working on this class right now. So the other ones kind of melt into they're somewhere else. I don't know. But if they have a to-do list that has all 8 classes and all of the things they need to do, then you can see progress when they check mark those things off the list. Or, again, if they're more tactile and they want to have a Post-it note on their door, when that Post-it note gets wadded up, that class is taken care of. But again, no teenager is going to welcome accountability, but it's absolutely imperative that your kid understands, that your student understands how important it is to be accountable. And I know that's really tough right now. It's tough for parents. It's tough for kids. There's no warm fuzzies when it comes to school accountability for their classes.
Thank you, Callie. Parents, family members, if you have any questions for Callie, you could type it in the chat or feel free to unmute since we have a small enough group. If you want to unmute and ask Callie a question about organization or how to help your kid, how to help your student. I see that Miss Smothers is dropping the files too into the chat. So definitely before we hop off here, if you think to click on those, but we'll also share it in our weekly s'more that comes out on Sundays. So that way you have access to those as well. So, but Miss Smothers is a great resource here at Oak Park High School. So she's done a lot this fall to help both students and staff just wrap their heads around how to be organized in this blended or virtual model. So, but again, if you do have questions, go ahead and type them in the chat. But at this time, we will transition to Miss Heather Brennan and Miss Natalie Coster.
Good morning. We wanted to talk a little bit today about just the emotional and the social impacts of what's going on. I know that that has been a concern for a lot of parents, been concern for a lot of teachers, for our students, and for everyone. This is difficult for kids, for you, for us, and it's a really important piece, and we wanted to give you kind of some tools and some guidance of where to go. One of the things that's been the biggest, I think, issue is that, and that we don't all realize that's happening, is that we are grieving. And what I mean by that is we've lost a lot of things. We've lost relationships, we lost the way school is, how our kids have lost how they're relating with friends, visits. Now we're looking at Thanksgiving changing. And with grief, one of the two things that accompany grief a lot is hopelessness and feeling like it's never going to change, and anger at how things have changed, that what has happened. And so you may be really seeing those type of things with your kids, maybe crying easily, getting mad easily, being irritated, getting really frustrated really easy. And I thought it was really important what Callie said, is that the accountability is hard anytime, anywhere with teenagers. Really hard when they're already frustrated and sad and angry. And so one of the things I say a lot is that I believe that most people are on a level of a 2, kind of like a level, you're doing a scale of 1 to 10, we're at a level of a 2 all the time with anxiety and worry. And my belief is that we're all actually now, pretty much everyone is at a 5. And so now when we have things thrown on us, we get to a 10 really easy. We had, 8 marks to go before, and now we have 5. And so you're going to see that happen with your kids. And you, I know I get irritated much easier, and my patience level is lower. My frustration level is higher. And so all those things are happening while we're trying to figure out how to organize our kid, right? And so it's just really important to, number one, give yourself some grace and your kids some grace, but just on a regular basis. But then we want to talk about too, what do we do when that's kind of gone over the edge and you're really concerned? So I'm going to let Natalie talk for a minute, and then I'm going to jump back in.
Right on. Like Heather was saying, this is a really challenging time. Everybody is feeling just an escalated amount of anxiety, and people are dealing with that in a lot of different ways, like with anger and with frustration. Sometimes it looks like people being very irritable. Sometimes it looks like people, doing very little and sleeping a lot and having a hard time getting up and going. And I think that kind of relates back to the importance of having that plan to keep moving forward with school. As far as kind of that social emotional support piece goes, Heather and I talked about just kind of the different levels of the types of supports that are available for students. There are students already out there who have some of these things in place, that have some social support groups, either through, text groups or video chatting with other students. There are a lot of students who have video gaming groups that can get together and socialize and kind of blow off steam that way. I know students are still in some ways able to participate in some school clubs and activities. And to the extent that students can do that, that can be a really big just social and emotional support. And I've heard too of students doing kind of quarantine bubbles, picking some friends and everybody kind of just quarantining together and being kind of the only people that they interact with. So that's kind of like level one of things that are probably already in place for some students. The next level would be just being able to check in with an adult on a occasional or regular basis, like a counselor, a coach, a family member, a teacher that they have a really positive relationship with. Just kind of keeping that communication open there to just lean on for some social emotional supports. Additionally, Heather and I have a student support group here at Oak Park called Oak Park Connection. It's a virtual support group, and we meet there's a meeting on Tuesdays at 1 o'clock and Wednesdays at 10 o'clock a.m. And it's just kind of a low-key drop-in support group for students to be able to talk with one another, especially for students that would have a hard time maybe accessing some of those non-virtual supports. This is an option that's completely virtual, and we'll be able to loop in everybody who wants to find a place to go and catch up with other students and just kind of talk about what's on their minds. However, sometimes, in life, there are just concerns that are a little bit heavier than what could be provided by like school support groups or just supports from friends and family. And in those times, sometimes we need to look to other community resources in order to meet those needs and address those concerns. Heather, that is I know your area of expertise.
One of the things that is available, I'm going to ask either Chris or Jackie or someone to maybe type my phone number in the chat. I am always available to parents to discuss concerns that they have that might be a next level. And when I'm talking next level, I'm saying maybe self-harm. Maybe your student is self-harming or talking about self-harm, maybe having comments or ideas, saying things that are maybe suicidal in nature. Those are all things that are super important and that I would be glad to talk with you about. And so if you call me, if your child is having those kind of issues and you call me or Natalie, either one of us can do that. And maybe Natalie's number can get in there. Callie's much more organized with her little flyer. Wish I thought about that, but calling us, we can refer you to some resources. Tri-County is probably our go-to in an emergency, whether or not Tri-County usually does not always take everyone's insurance. They actually deal with people who do not have insurance most often. And so if you have insurance, you might get referred somewhere else. But if you are concerned about your child's welfare, they will always take your call. So if you call me, I will help you get referred to them. I'll help you navigate your insurance providers, and we can look at other things. The one thing I tell families, if you are really concerned about your child's welfare, go to an emergency room, call an emergency room, call the suicide hotline number. Do get them some help, call me. There's a lot of help out there. A lot of it's telehelp, but telehelp is really good too. So if you have a level that you are really concerned, your child's showing signs of depression, your child's showing signs, that's hard to say, showing signs of self-harm, always reach out to us or reach out to the local hospital and they will get you help. The other thing I want to talk about, and Natalie chime in here, is that I think this sounds kind of really basic idea, but I use it a lot with students and it's really helpful. and that is the idea of clay and rock problems. And sometimes when we have so much stuff going around, we really need to be basic in how we look at problems. And kind of talking about it like that, when I introduce it to teens, they kind of laugh at me like, oh, brother, but they use it. And so what the idea is that clay or Play-Doh is something like, if I made a snake, someone could turn it into a ball, right? So clay problems are those problems that we can change. If you're flunking a class or getting a low grade in a class, you can start doing some things like Callie talked about with organization. That's a clay problem. That's something that you can change. The problem right now is that a lot of the problems that all of us are dealing with are rock problems. Those things that we cannot change. COVID's out of our hands. The racial issues in our country are out of our hands. Political issues are out of our hands. We have a lot of things that are rock problems. But the important thing to realize about rock problems is that the only way you deal with rock problems is to cope, figure out ways of coping. So that's how you deal with the rock problem. So what happens is kids look at the rock problem and they feel helpless and they think, I can't do anything. Well, you can do things. You can learn how to cope with that. So Natalie's going to jump in with some ideas of coping.
Yeah, and we were just talking the other day about just some coping mechanisms. And actually, I got some of these ideas too from the student support group on Wednesday. And so some of the things I know students have been using this year to just kind of cope with some of those rock problems, some of the things that we can't really change, such as the pandemic, are things like exercising. I know exercise is just a big coping factor for a lot of students and staff, but things like journaling, staying connected to friends, classmates, family members, gaming, watching TV, getting on social media, that can be a good escape, although that can be kind of a balance too, since I think sometimes going overboard in one direction can actually create more stress. So just, there's a balance, but, spending time with pets, let's see, listening to music, different kinds of self-care activities, like, giving yourself a spa day, doing your nails, or, just that kind of stuff can sometimes be really good for just improving your mood. Just a lot of like things to keep busy. A student was talking about just organizing, working on crafts, just different kinds of like workbooks, puzzles, coloring books, especially right now when we're kind of at home for extended periods of time, just things to kind of keep us occupied. And a lot of this is just waiting. And sometimes things to just kind of help us with that waiting part can be pretty beneficial, since that can be a hard thing to do a lot of the time. Let's see, and I also mentioned exercise earlier, and I just want to clarify too that exercise doesn't have to be some like, knock down, drag out, like, multi-mile run type of thing. It could just be going out and just going for a walk in your neighborhood and getting some fresh air, and just, being outside of your house and getting that change in environment can sometimes help with a little bit of a change in perspective. So those are all some things that brainstormed and thought of, and that's certainly not a comprehensive list. There are lots of different things that we can do to try to kind of make it to the other side of this pandemic.
Well, and attending a support group is one of the ways that you can cope. Looking up some things on, one of the things that you might want to encourage your students and yourself to do is to look up mindfulness on Google and find out some of the exercises that you can do, just simple little things that you can do. But all of those things are helpful. The thing I wanted to end on is that that I think is really important, and I hang on to it a lot, is the acronym for the word hope. And that stands for, what I think it stands for is hang on, pain ends. And I think that's really important for all of us to know that this will end, and we are going to get back to a semblance of normal. And so that is one of the things that I have taught teens and that they have told me they really like, is that hang on, pain ends. That's something you can say to yourself a lot, but I do believe it's going to end. And just for you as parents, I know this is really hard, and hang on, pain will end. So we're here for you. Call us, let us know what you need, and we'll do our best to help you.
Thank you both so much. And I can't think of a more important topic right now with so much that's going on. So, when this school year started, we had all these plans for students and all these things we were going to do to just help them not miss a beat in their classes. And what we've learned very quickly is it's not always about learning. So students need to feel safe. They need to feel valued. They need to know that we're here for them before we can ever make learning a priority. So Natalie and Heather have been an excellent resource in helping us make sure that we're here for students first and foremost. So again, I'd love to open it up. I've had a couple of questions in the chat. They've been phenomenal. So are there any other questions from the group? You're free to unmute if that's easier, or if you want to type it in the chat before our time comes to an end. In college, I always talked to teachers about wait time, and that was something I always really struggled with. It was hard for me to sit in a quiet room for very long.
Do you want to share some of the questions, Chris?
We've answered all the questions in the chat. For your group, they were asking about what the group was called for students. So I told them it was Oak Park Connections, and gave them the times, and also said they could reach out to either you or Natalie.
And that's what they need to do, is they need to just send an email, give us the student's name, and then we'll send them an invite.
Mm-hmm. But our help does not extend to just this video. So I saw from Lori, she said thank you, and this was helpful, and that's wonderful to hear. We'll continue to do things like this, and if you have any topics, feel free to shoot those to me. You can email me or call the main line. So anything that we can do to help, but we'll also make sure this video is available on the S'more on Sunday. So we've started that weekly communication to families. So if you're not getting that, let us know, because that's important. So and I saw Callie put her email in there, and she dropped her one pager and the videos, which will also include the S'more. So, but thank you so much. It's wonderful to see some families hopping on here, and we hope that this was worth your 7 a.m. wake up call. So if you need anything, let us know. But does anyone have anything to add before we leave? Again, a huge thank you to Heather and Natalie and to Callie for helping us out this morning, and to Mike and Jackie for being on here this morning. And Jackie's been the one that's organizing these and setting them up. So thank you all so much. And again, thank you again for all you do for our students. We love them so much, and we know everyone's going through a hard time. So, but just know that we are here for you no matter what, if there's anything we can do. So with that, we will say goodbye. Have an awesome day. And again, if you need anything, reach out. Okay, bye guys.